This is the Astrology Show podcast with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. This is your astrology and tarot for the week starting Monday, November 25. Have you picked up your free 2025 astrology calendar yet? It shows all the full moon, new moon and eclipse dates that you need for next year. You can put it on your computer or print it for your notice board. It's at my website and is an early Christmas present for you. Now, do you have Sagittarius factors in your chart? The new moon falls at 9 Sagittarius on December 1. This is a fresh start involving foreigners, foreign countries, publishing, the World Wide Web, and academia. It's stop-start, though, so allow until January for rescheduling. Happy birthday if it's your birthday. The relationship with your brother, sister, or cousin will transform by February, but you will both need to share the controls. Famous birthdays this week include Jimi Hendrix, who would have been 82 on November 27, Chris Bailey, a charming gent who would have been 68 on November 29, John Densmore is 80 on December 1, another charming gent. Babies born this week have Jupiter in Gemini, and all their lives the internet will be lucky for them, even when it's no longer called the internet. Your tarot this week is Aries, the Hermit, Taurus, the Four of Swords, Gemini, the Ten of Swords, Cancer, Strength, Leo, the Six of Cups, Virgo, the Ten of Pentacles, Libra, Temperance, Scorpio, the King of Swords, Sagittarius, the Emperor, Capricorn, the Hierophant, Aquarius, Death, which never means death, just an ending followed by a beginning, and Pisces, the Seven of Pentacles. Aries. Well, Chiron is in Aries with the North Node, Salacia, Fortuna, and Hygeia. You are all front at the moment, front and centre, like a centre forward, also up front. Chiron is the teacher or the professor figure, the foster parent figure who shows you what is possible for self-promotion, profile, name, face, and so on. Nothing is too outrageous or audacious anymore. Dennis Elwell called Chiron the symbol of the heretic or gadfly. When we look at your chart, we see the new story with the group, the circle around you that is so powerful. But we also have this story going on about who you are. And as Aries, the Ram, you are very much here about to be seen and to be heard, but also to be very much on your own, out there on the front line, all front and centre. So how does that work with the group? Well, it makes sense if they want you to be pushing forward for them or flying the flag for them. That would work very well. But in general, you are going to find power and control issues within the team, the club, the band, the association, and so on, not just now, but for many years into the future. So you may want to get off on the right foot this week and be quite aware of your Aries side, which is admirable and necessary because nobody else can really do it. But at the same time, if there's too much me in the story, it makes it very difficult for this group of quite diverse people to accommodate you. So you really have to find your role with them and around them. Also coming up with this Aquarius weather is a real turning point as you go towards the 7th of December. Around that date, we have an historic lineup of Pluto, Venus, and Ceres, all in Aquarius, the sign of people power shared horizontally, not from the top down. This is really new, and it's one of the reasons why something like Blue Sky is taking off, going through the roof in terms of people signing up for it. It's a portent of things to come, and your chart says you are involved somehow. Whether you're a member of Blue Sky or not, you are part of this swirling new development, which is all about people who are incredibly different from each other, discovering that together they can do more than they ever could alone or with a partner. But as I've said, it's that Aries stellium in your chart this week that's telling you you can't really be who you are and be so upfront unless you are also making it fit with the new power, which is very much with them. Taurus. Well, we've been talking about groups, and the group involving one or more friends continues to take you knitting a new pattern in your life or unravelling a big ball of wool. The issue, if it involves money or property, is very likely on your computer or in the post or on your phone, but in flux because Mercury is retrograde. In general, the frenemies, the allies, the acquaintances, and the rubbing shoulders with people in your circle are here to show you how you can escape from the real world. And that's not changed. You've had Saturn in Pisces and also Neptune in Pisces for quite a long time. What's also happening, though, in your birth chart is the same thing. So, what you're seeing is a real focus on how people can give space to each other and be tolerant in the interests of collectively pursuing something that's bigger than themselves. This is day one of it. So, Pluto's sitting right on 0 Aquarius as you're listening to this, but it's already making itself quite well known to you. And because it's in your 11th house natally, and this other pattern in Pisces is in your 11th house in your solar chart, you're almost listening to the same soundtrack played by two different musicians. This will become increasingly important as you go towards December, January, and February next year, and a major decision will come in May when you sign off from this very long cycle about other people in the group, the nature of the group itself, the chemistry, the structure of the group, and people who have been in and out of that group for various reasons last year in particular, and perhaps the year before. So coming to terms with them and also the total lack of boundaries that's been there is quite important this week. This whole boundary issue keeps on catching you because every time you try to draw a line, somebody else or something else comes along and erases it. But you have learned enough by now, with Neptune almost at the end of this transit, to start reinforcing, again, the walls or putting in a lighthouse, an anchor, and some ropes. People who are random, all over the place, everywhere, all the time, are an ongoing challenge for you. But as I've said, it ends in May. Gemini. Well, we've been talking about friends in this podcast, and it's very much where things are at, with Pluto in Aquarius, a sign of friendship, for the first time in 248 years. Well, one friend in particular, old or new, will now come to symbolize the centaur Chiron to you. He was the strangest teacher in ancient Rome, as he was half man, half horse, but essentially was in charge of the music curriculum. He was essentially a punk, and in fact, he was found in 1977. Gemini, somebody like this is circling and is quite enlightening as part of your ongoing experiment with what you can get away with socially, on social media, with bands, teams, clubs, societies, and associations, and so on. Gemini, you also have Salacia passing through the same zone of your chart. So she is all about total escape from reality. This lineup in your horoscope is pretty unusual. It dominates your chart this week, and it suggests that there's so much more going on than just saying, well, this is my friend, or we are together and collectively doing this. It appears to be a really big psychological shift for you. There's also karma here, going back 18 or 19 years. So you owe, or you are owed from 18 or 19 years before. And it may be played out by the same friend or the same group, or you may recognize the theme, if not the face. All of this karma ends in January next year as the nodes change signs, but ongoing, friends and groups are going to be a really big part of 2025. In fact, in May, you will either make a commitment, a deeper commitment to the original circle, or you will find a new group of people sweeps you away in a different direction. This week is all about understanding that there are very new rules out there. And with the departure of Pluto from Capricorn, nobody is that interested anymore in who is at the top or how to get to the top. Where it's at this week and ongoing for you is understanding that everybody's different. Everybody wants and needs space, and that has to be respected. But collectively, you can experiment and pull off something that should not happen and could not happen, but really is going to happen. Cancer. Your current professional or academic education will go on until 2027, as it takes that long for Chiron to complete his cycle in your 10th house of success. You also have Salacia here this week, Neptune's wife. She is a symbol of escaping from the real world, so there is nothing about your status, success, ambition, or position which is remotely normal. It's far more like a bubble or an alternative reality. And that's perfectly fine. But it's also part of something bigger that's going on in your chart, because At the moment, you're still repeating some karma from 18 or 19 years before. The North Node in Aries is doing that for you. But that ends in January. And then in May next year, what's going to happen is a total shift, because what you think of as success probably has to change then. What you will be offered from May and June is a way out of what is conventionally seen as making it or hanging in there in the system or doing well. You're going to be put on a different path if you want it. And that's hinted at this week. You may see some conversations or ideas floating around and begin to rethink what success should be for you. You are also going through quite an interesting new financial cycle. At the moment, you need to time yourself with this and also pace yourself, because although it's quite true that a big sign-off decision or sign-on decision has to happen by February, Mars is retrograde in Leo in your finance and property and business sector, and that means he's going backwards. So there's backwards action here too, and you may find that what is currently in motion is stop, start, reverse, cancel well into the first half of next year. So even though there's a really good reason for you to want to change things and to have to change them, at the same time, you may want to have a schedule that's quite flexible, because when Mars is retrograde, you tend to find that people go back, they reverse, sometimes they change their plan, and of course you have to change to accommodate them. Mars is about action, not words, but here he is going backwards when he should be going forwards. So it's an odd sort of time financially for you. Finally, what's happening this week for everybody, and also for you, is very much the realization that you do not have to put up with the old way of doing things. Pluto is out of Capricorn, and the new money is on people who are going to pioneer and experiment. Leo, you will be shown that nothing goes too far with travel, the internet, books, foreigners, universities, schools, or relocation. There are no limits anymore. You will be shown what is within reach, and you will also realise this week that this is a completely new world, an alternative to what you might call the known world, with journeys, with foreigners and foreign countries, publishing, websites, even emigration. Talk about getting away with it. Well, you certainly will with this line up in your chart. In fact, there are so many factors here in Aries that there's a pretty good chance one of them is going to trine your Leo sun, which means that your profile and the way that you are seen is highlighted by what's going on abroad or with people from foreign backgrounds locally. Even if you don't have that trine hitting your sun, you are also going through one of those situations known as Mercury retrograde, which means that even though nothing really comes together properly until the first week of January, you should still not give up on what's happening for you overseas, with people who are from abroad in your own country, and with the bigger picture of multiculturalism, academia, or the publishing world. Mercury is notorious for sending the paperwork backwards and forwards. The couriers don't arrive on time. There are issues with communication and all the rest. Now, that's happening in the same sector of your chart natally, which is why things aren't really gelling as they should. But when they do gel, which is the first week of January, you will understand that this too had a part to play. Maybe you just needed to go back over things and rehearse them. Certainly next year looks dynamite in terms of you being on the map or finding a part of the map that you can begin to call your own. Virgo. So here we have a bold statement this week being written about your money, your house, your business, your charity, your apartment, or your valuables. And that bold statement is about the so-called impossible possible, or the acceptable unacceptable. This is a long cycle, with Chiron staying in Aries until 2027. However, this week has its part to play. If by any chance this is about the family, a lease, a real estate investment, a home or a household, be extremely careful, as your ruler Mercury is retrograde until the first week of January. So read the fine print and have plan B and plan C, just because Mercury has a reputation for delay and also for reversal, and sometimes for cancellation as well. Maybe that isn't the case, and your concerns this week financially are more to do with shares or maybe cryptocurrency. Whatever path you're on, you do have to put tremendous amounts of time and energy into this. Although by January next year, you'll realise that a fairly stuck circular loop has finished, as the North Node and South Node move out of your money and property zone. So you're on a loop at the moment, and there's not much that you can say or do that affects anything at all. Or so it would seem, but you're also on a loop for a pretty good reason, and that is that 18 or 19 years ago, you set up some karma with other people. You are owed by the universe, perhaps, or maybe you owe. But the reason that nothing ever really changes and there's so much repetition is that you have to be repaid or you have to pay out. And that's why this is going on in your astrology chart. Later on next year in May, which may already be showing up in your diary or your calendar, you are going to go onto a completely different level with money, and you will be offered something that looks very much like a holiday from reality. Libra. You will be taken back to the supposedly firm plans of October and November this week. Bear in mind, they may not be final or even in place until you know every detail for sure in the first week of January. Also this week, your former, current or potential partner is front and centre, perhaps your enemy, rival or opponent. The seventh house of your chart rules you and somebody else on your side or the other side who might be pushing back. So there's a lot of time and space required here to sort out the balancing of the scales. You are, of course, ruled by the scales, and the week begins with the moon in Libra, your own sign. So you have a reputation here for wanting symmetry and harmony, even if you have to fight to get it. In an ideal world, you would have just that kind of partnership where the scales or the seesaw is nicely balanced without any effort at all from you. But your chart suggests that this isn't the case, and that perhaps because of what was going on 18 or 19 years before, you and the other person or the other side now have to spend a fair bit of time working out what's fair. If you need an impartial judge figure, then that person is around. And this strange combination of Libra and Aries in your chart this week suggests that eventually, by the beginning of next year, justice will be done. Accepting that something is fair or reasonable or right or harmonious is half the battle for you and also for him or her. And it can happen in a happy marriage or business partnership as much as a difficult situation where you're against each other. You'll probably never know yourself quite as well as you do this week, with so much focus on Libra and your opposite sign of Aries, understanding that another pair of eyes or another mind can be focused on what is reasonable between the pair of you or for the pair of you. That's really the focus of your chart this week. Scorpio. A person or organisation best described as a teacher or educational. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear, is here this week as a central instructor with health, work, unpaid work, mental health, lifestyle, and academia. Chiron was a master of herbal medicine, according to the old Latin texts. Perhaps some variation on this theme will touch your life this week, be it medical marijuana or pharmaceuticals. Chiron was primarily a teacher, though. He taught the lyre, a musical instrument similar to a kithara, and you have a new curriculum of life and lifestyle. You will be taught on whatever level you are ready to receive. You have quite a few factors here in your zone of work, health, and lifestyle, and you can't really separate them. It's the same with study, housework, or unpaid work. If you are happy to serve and do your duty, then your body will probably also serve you and your mind. If there is anything here subconsciously that you're not sorting out with your service or duty to other people, or even just to those at home, then it's very likely that you're going to find a spanner in the works put there in order to get you to slow down and think about what you're doing. By the time you get to January next year, a rather stuck situation will end with work or health. The repetition will cease, and you'll be on your way with a major change in May next year, with, once again, the way that you have your lifestyle, your health, or your workload. This is hinted at this week. Nothing is really ready to go yet. What you're probably going to find is that you just reach conclusions that you're prepared to act on later. All of this focus on the mind, body, and spirit is pretty normal when you have factors going through your sixth house. If you're one of those Scorpio people who have anything in Virgo, then this is doubly important. And you may want to look at your personal birth chart this week as well. Sagittarius. The zone of your horoscope, which rules pregnancy, adoption, godchildren, young relatives, relationships which might end in parenthood, sons, daughters, grandchildren, Generation Z, involved with you on whatever level, is really packed. So your own personal birth chart will reveal all too. If you have factors in Leo, there is a double importance here. Even if you don't or you don't know, what's going on this week is an experiment to see where the new possible is in terms of a younger generation and your close relationships with other people, either existing parents with you, co-parents, or potential parents for the future. This is not the chart of somebody who wants to do what is conventional or traditional. In fact, you're far more interested in seeing what you can get away with and also where you can escape to. So that's what's going on for you this week. You may have found somebody that understands that, or you may be doing this by yourself, but it's very unlikely that you're going to give up experimenting while Chiron is in Aries for such a long time. As I've said, May 2025 is a bit of a deadline for you, and it may already be in your diary or calendar in terms of your son or daughter in particular, or a younger generation. Then everything becomes even more of an escape from the real world for you, which is really where you're heading. Other people have their reality, you have yours, and you want, above all, capital E, escape. And that's what your chart is showing this week. Capricorn. This week largely concerns your house, apartment, family, household, hometown, or homeland. By rights, things should not happen and could not happen. They seem unfeasible or unrealistic, and yet they are happening. So there are some alternatives here. Other realities or other worlds. You could even say a parallel universe. What else is going on? Well, you already know this, but the internet, the post office, your telephone, computer, multimedia, and so on, travel, transport, are all affected by the go slow and stop start of Mercury retrograde. But to return to the really important issues, what we have here is a preparation for you to repair, renovate, or move in the second half of next year at a level that you've not seen possible for many years. People do this all the time, of course, and you may be doing it now, but what you're really going to see is an opening up of all sorts of possibilities with your existing house or apartment or a new one in the second half of next year as Jupiter, the problem solver and opportunity bringer, moves into Cancer, the sign of home life. This is swirling around this week as you begin to see that maybe you have been limiting your options and accepting what other people say is the norm. That's not really where it's at. Your chart is suggesting that other alternatives are really there for you, however you define home or residence or whatever you've accepted to date in terms of, for example, a rental or mortgage situation or the property market as a whole. It's entirely possible that you will end up opting for an alternative that was not on your agenda last year. And if so, some of the clues and hints will be there this week. The other thing that's going on is a massive financial transformation, which takes you between now and December, January, February to complete. Pluto is in your second house of money for the first time in 248 years, and that's a game changer. December 7 is the other date to watch, and you might allow a day either side of that. It seems very likely that you're going to cut a deal then or have a deal cut with you, which could not happen at any other time in history. Aquarius. What you assumed was emotion or firmly in place with your friends, your groups, your social media, particularly a circle, a club or a team, was never in place at all. You talked or put things in writing, and now they're back again in a loop. If you begin anything new with these people, then get it in writing, read the fine print, get a second opinion, and have plan B. It doesn't matter if it's a band or a fan club or a political party. Whatever it is, and it may just be an online circle of people, you are going through Mercury retrograde until the first week of January, so nothing that appears to be fixed is really fixed at all. Having said that, the importance of your circle, and your circles plural, is coming way up on the ladder. This is all pretty new, Pluto has only been in Aquarius for a few days as you're listening to this, but it is in the same zone of your chart where your sun is. At your brilliant best, you shine as somebody who supplies the circle. You give this circle of people what it needs to thrive, even if you're never totally immersed in it. This is all to the fore at the moment. And what you're discovering between now and particularly February is that power is in the space and power is in the room. So you have your part to play with that as well. It's just annoying that Mercury retrograde means that everything's going backwards and forwards at the same time, but you will clear this as you go into next year. The other thing that's happening in your chart is a brand new start with the internet, publishing, multimedia, education, and all communication. So that's going on as well. It's a kind of a mixed bag, really, where you realize things are starting, but you're going to have to push up with other people's delays, and that could be extreme weather, computer issues, or just human frailty. The other big thing that's happening in your chart this week is a huge number of factors in Aries, which for you describes how you connect and contact and communicate over neighbouring or short distances. So this isn't global. It's actually the people next door, the suburb next door, or an adjacent state or county, maybe Paris, London, or LA, New York at a pinch. For you, this is a very important experiment to see what's possible because other people have their views on what should not happen, what must never happen, and all the rest of it. But for you, it's all about, well, what can I get away with? And you will be seen, heard, or read on quite a different level. As you go into next year, May 2025 may be coming up on your calendar or in your diary already. And that is significant because the project, the plan, or the course will take off then in a new direction, or you will start a new one and discover a totally different world. This week is about remembering that you're an Aquarian above all else, and all things that came naturally to you when you were a child or a teenager in terms of the circles around you are now going to help you come into your own. Pisces. I've been talking about the potential for muddle with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius for quite some time, so hopefully you planned in advance and you avoided October, November for anything major, professionally or academically, or with your unpaid work, not because the sky falls on your head, but because you do end up with quite exasperating situations caused by lack of communication, snowstorms, all sorts of things, even computer malfunction or just the post office. So don't get too caught up in this. It ends in January anyway. And in fact, this is a very good week for a dress rehearsal about your career, your academic career, or your unpaid work. And it suits beta testing or first drafts perfectly. You will now be sent all the way back to October or November professionally if you did go ahead, and this won't be over for some weeks. The other really major story for you is financial, to do with property, business, charity, or your valuables. And this Aries stellium in your horoscope is telling you that there are more things on heaven and on earth than are dreamed of in anybody's philosophy about banks, for example, or about what you do to save or make money. In fact, you're being shown a way through and a way out that's quite alternative. You can pursue this more in May next year. May 2025 is written in your chart this week, as you'll be offered something that is very dear to your heart, which is an escape. It's almost like a balloon ride or a vacation from the real world financially. And it's pretty typical to see things like property bubbles or highly unusual arrangements where you can save or make money in a way that nobody else can. This is all written in the future, but this week it's alluded to in your chart. And you have some choices to make, which are quite interesting for you. The more that you accept there is no conventional or traditional or normal, the more your options open up with your life budget. So that's it for this week. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch up with you again next week.